Alrighty, so in this video what we're going to do is upgrade our instance of Unity and Photon. So I saw that some people were having some issues with the later versions of both of those, so I want to get those resolved here in this video so that we're using the latest version of everything, because it's been a while since we updated. Anyway, so what I've done so far is I've downloaded the Unity launcher, so if you head on over to unity.com, download the free version, blah blah blah, click through and you'll get this list. You know, I'm not too interested about any of this really, except the Microsoft Visual Studio tools. That would be nice. Windows Build would be nice. And right now we're not targeting any other operating systems, so everything there, I kind of want to put that in there too, to play around with that. So anyway, so then just go ahead and hit next, and it'll download. So yeah, so that'll download and all that fun stuff. So while that's doing that, let's go ahead and download the latest version of Photon. So Photon socket server, and here we go. So you want the on-premise version over on photonengine.com. So they've changed their website up just a little bit. So they still have the free license, I do believe, and it wants my email now for some reason. Click on SDKs. Can I just log in? Or can I just go ahead and download here? So current version, server, go ahead and download that. And it wants me to log in, but that's okay. I have my stuff, and I am not a robot. And then we'll go ahead and sign in there. And apparently I'm going to not read any of this, and then I'm going to hit OK. So yeah, we still have 100 CCU, so that's what we want. So I'll go ahead and download that. Okay, well that's kind of silly. In the meantime, where is the download link for the actual SDK? Are you gonna give me that? Because that would be really nice if you gave me the actual SDK. That's what I want. I don't want to log in again. There we go. So you have to click on that, then log in, then come back, because we can't have nice things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the 100 CCU license. Now I have my license. And Photon's still downloading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video, or not Photon, Unity is. So I'm going to pause the video. I don't want to run two installers at once, although I think the Photon installer, quote unquote, is just a self-extracting archive. Actually, while that goes, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to uninstall my services that I already have for Photon. So I'll go ahead and launch my Photon control panel. So if you guys made services for your game servers, make sure to open up your control panel, and then in this case, so I have Game Instance 1 and Game Instance 2. I want to go ahead and remove service. And service removed, awesome. And then Game Service 2, remove service, and service removed. So those two services are now removed, meaning what we can do is head on over to wherever I put that. Where did I put you? Because I have multiple versions of Photon on this computer. So basically the process here is I'm going to go ahead and extract Photon into my software directory, and I'm going to move over the configuration files and remove over my lib files, which are going to be super fun, and then of course open up Visual Studio and switch over the output bin directory for all of these guys. So we'll do that once Unity finishes downloading. And so I guess we will see you guys in a few minutes. Well, to you guys it'll pretty much be instant, but I have to wait. Seriously, this is taking forever, so if you guys are following along, you should probably go get like a cup of coffee or something. But anyway, back to waiting. Alrighty, so that took a little bit of time, but it's done. So let's go ahead and launch Unity and see what's going to happen when we open up the project. I'm just going to be checking here for build errors, and then we'll move on to upgrading Photon. So, yeah, go ahead and launch that. And it should prompt me to do a one-way upgrade or whatever, but that's fine if it does. Again, I just want to hit play and make sure that I don't get any compiler errors. So hit play, and we're launched. Alright, so Unity is good. Seems that I didn't have any issues upgrading that. So let's go ahead and upgrade Photon. So I think this is a self-extracting archive here that I just clicked on, and will eventually appear on my screen once it gets around to doing that. which, here we go. And wants to extract. So I don't know if it's going to extract, I don't know. What version is this anyway? We are downloading. It's probably a good thing to know what version this is. And I'll just create a folder in my software folder. I'll just create an empty folder and plop it in there. Once I get the version number, which is 4029. 4029. So Photon-v4-0-29. Alright, so now I have my empty folder right here, so I'll just go ahead and take that and paste that and hit extract and wait some more. Because we love to wait. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my computer, why my hard drives are going so slow. I might have to look into that, but I will do that later. So here we have this. So I'm just going to take these. I'm going to pull all of these folders back into this folder. I don't want that folder at all. Okay, so how would we go about updating Photon? Well, the most important thing is we go into our bin Win64, and I'm going to go ahead and move. I'm going to unpin my old Photon control, plop that down. I'm also going to throw in my license. My license should be in my download folder, so I'm going to open up my download folder off screen here and wait for it to load. Yeah, there's definitely something funky going on with my my disk I/O tonight. So, yeah. All right, so that folder finally loaded, and I'm just going to drag and drop my Photon license. So now I have my 100 concurrent user license installed. So now we can launch Photon, although Photon control. So we have MMO demo, load balancing. Okay, so it looks like things are a little different looking than what we're used to. So let's go on an adventure and discover how to upgrade together. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into deploy. I'm going to open up Visual Studio, and I'm going to change the directories that I copy over the things. So that's going to be under my old instance of Photon. I just did Buzz MMO, then Game 1, Game 2 Master. So inside of deploy, I'm going to create a folder Buzz MMO. Inside of that, I'm going to do Game 1, Game 2, Game 2, Master, no, Game 2. And then once Visual Studio decides to load, then I will go ahead and update those paths and get those built, and then we'll move over the configuration. Also, just a heads up, just a couple of days ago, VS 2015 Update 3 came out, so make sure you go ahead and grab that. You can grab that online. And ASP.NET Core, I think that's a release candidate now, but the tooling is still in beta. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up Buzz MMO and source and Buzz MMO. So I just want to change those directories, get it built out, make sure everything is built out first, because we're not going to be able to test that our configuration is working until we actually have a build of the project in those 3 folders that we just created. So I think we're going to have to unload a couple solutions, but that's pretty simple to do. So I think, let's go over to the Solution Explorer, and everything's loading. My poor hard drives and 5-year-old CPU are not having a great time with this solution. All right, looks like we're about initialized. So for the master, I think for this guy we just did a direct output. I don't think we did anything. No, we didn't. So we did edit the actual build file. So go ahead and unload that. Unload master, edit. And it should be down at the bottom as a post-build step. Yes, it is. It goes to debug Photon deploy location. So I already extracted that out into a variable. That sounds like a smart thing to do. So I'm going to open up build, go to probably BuzzMMO build local proj, and here it is, debug Photon deploy location. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste the, not that, what am I doing? I'm doing this one. I'm just going to copy and paste that new directory. And with that done, I should be able to hit F6, and it should do a recompile, or actually it's going to be an incremental build because all the incremental build artifacts were in the local folders. But once it's finished, it's going to throw an error, because that's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so what's the error? What are you yelling at me about? Oh, it needs me to, okay. So it needs me to add a bin folder in each, well, I already have a bin folder, and it's already, oh, I'm looking at the old one. I'm going to close that window so I stop getting confused. It wants a bin folder in all of these, but that's fine. I'm going to create a bin folder in that, bin folder in that, bin folder in that. Not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about going in and changing the build steps so that it automatically creates the bin file. It's not that big of a deal. All right, so we have a build succeeded, which means nothing happened. So I think we have to trigger a full rebuild in order for it to recopy over everything. I'm going to trigger a full, actually, I'm just going to come up here and just do build clean solution. Let's just nuke the whole thing. Clean solution rebuild, the nuclear option, should do what we want it to do. Yeah, I see the folders being populated on my other monitor. And now we have a build of our game 1 and our game 2 and our master. So now the last thing we have to do here to get Photon to work, hopefully, well actually before we do that, before we change the configuration, there is another thing we have to do. We have to update the client API. So I'm going to pop open our solution inside of Explorer. I'm going to back out of the source folder and go into the lib folder. So we have Photon Server, Photon Client Unity, and Photon Client.net. So what we need to do is basically replace all these files with the new updated client API from Photon. So that's going to be located. In the Photon folder that we extracted under lib. And it looks like there's a bit of a different thing here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort by type, and I want to make sure that I get logging log for net, exit game libs, log for net, socket server, and host runtime. So let's do exit game logging.net. Exit games logging.net. I'm going to grab the PDB and the XML as well. Exit game libs, PDB and XML. I don't think we need to have a dependency on ionic zip. I think that's, but if we get an error, we can move that over too. Log for net, and then we need Photon host run interfaces, or Photon socket server, which, am I blind? I am blind because it's right there. And let's go ahead and pull in the PDB and XML. And then, now that we have that, we can go ahead and Photon host runtime, which is right there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to delete everything in here, and then I'm going to paste that in there. So now we have all of our server-side client library moved over. So now let's go into our photonclient.net, which is just photon3.net DLL, which is right here, DLL, PDB, XML, copy and paste, not cut and paste, because I don't want to move it out of my folder. So make sure 1/15/2016, I guess that's when it was built, that's fine. Then our Unity, which is Photon 3 Unity, DLL, PDB, XML. Move that over. And sweet. So our libraries are moved over, and they are the same names as what we had before. So in theory, I should be able to come over here and say rebuild solution. Now, if everything goes fantastically, we won't get any errors. But if we're going to run into some problems... Actually, I shouldn't have done a rebuild. I should have done a clean, then a rebuild, because... Okay, we got errors. Okay, so we got some errors. Some of our errors were because some intermediate files were still referencing some of the older libs that we just cleaned out. So I'm going to do a clean solution. I'm going to like right-click on BuzzMMO Server Master and show in folder... I am seriously blind tonight. Open File Explorer. I'm going to make sure that it is properly cleared out. In fact, I'm just going to nuke the bin and obj folder. Generally, when I go and I hot swap in some DLLs by upgrading them, I'll generally like to go in and just nuke anything that might be referencing those. So let's just do that for that. Anyway, now just to be super certain, clean again and rebuild. Okay, so we'll still get errors, but I think the error list will actually get smaller there because I think some of those errors were from referencing the older versions of those DLLs that were copied into one of the bin folders because Visual Studio likes to do that. I guess I was wrong. Looks like we have the exact same stuff. And we're still running into that issue where we have a lock on that file and we have to restart Visual Studio. I still need to fix that. I don't understand. But, okay, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I don't care about any of that. What I do care about is this error and this error. So Photon client transport does not implement interface member iPhoton peer listener on message object. So that should be easy enough to fix. Just implement the missing member on message. And actually, I'm going to pause the video for a second. I'm going to go to the documentation and find out what the Photon peer listener on message method even does. But again, we are in BuzzMMO client infrastructure Photon client transport. Anyway, I'll be right back. Alrighty, so it looks like on message is in Photon for raw messages, in quotes, will get their own callback method in this interface, not used yet. So we can just safely go ahead and close that out or delete that in case it gets called again, but it's not used yet, so we don't have to care about it. It looks like it might be some sort of performance thing where it doesn't do the dictionary serialization, which would actually be kind of neat. But for right now, we really don't care because it doesn't do anything. On to the next error. What's the next error? Peer base does not contain a constructor that takes one argument. So let's look at what its constructor does take. It takes a init request, which, wait, huh? Peer base does not contain a constructor that takes one argument. Well, I'm looking at it right now. Init request. It's just kind of right there. Peer base does not. Okay, we are having probably something to do with the XML doc cache of Visual Studio. Visual Studio likes to cache the documentation for the autocomplete when you reference DLLs. So I'm just going to turn it off and turn it back on again. I mean, after all, it is a Microsoft product, so that might clear out that doc cache. Because according to the signature I was looking at with the autocomplete, PureBase clearly did have a constructor that took one parameter, but the compiler is the final say. Even when IntelliSense is kind of off, which it sometimes is, the compiler is always the final say. So now that we're back, let's wait for everything to initialize. And now let's open up our thing, and we still have that init request. So I don't know. I'm going to decompile that. So I'm going to control click on it. This decompiler is from the JetBrains from ReSharper. And let's take a look at its constructors and see if we can fill any of those out without having to look at the documentation. Oh, it's internal. Wait. Is this a joke? How do you instantiate this then? If it's internal. Huh. So, yeah, so those constructors do exist, but they're now marked as internal, and I'm not seeing any other constructor on this type. Let me go ahead and collapse to definitions here, see if we can spot any other constructors that would hopefully not be internal, because that's going to seriously throw a wrench in what we're doing here. Okay, so clearly there's a different way to work with peer bases now. That's fun. So what we're going to do, again, I told you this would be an adventure. What we're going to do is we are going to venture down into the example source code. So this is how you figure things out when something weird happens, which you didn't expect. Come on, which folder are you in? There you are. So I'm going to go into the folder that I extracted Photon out. I'm going to go to source server. And for this, I'm just going to look at light. I'm just going to open up Light right there and give Visual Studio a couple years to initialize, because this is a not a repository, a project I've yet to open. So we'll give it a moment here. All right, so it looks like we're good. What I want to see is I want to see the application, my application. So what does application do? So application inherits from Light application, has some methods, create peer, peer base, return new my peer. So what does my peer do? My peer inherits from Light peer. What does Light peer do? Light peer inherits from client peer. Who is client peer? Client peer seems to be from Photon socket server. Okay, so apparently, looking at this, see, it wasn't that scary. We just had to look at some example code, click through a little bit, then decompile this file. So it looks like what they did, based off of what I'm seeing right here, is they're separating. They added a new class that is hiding all the other constructors from peer base. My theory is they either want us to start using client peer instead of peer base, or they're going to start putting some additional functionality onto client peer that wouldn't be appropriate to put on peer base. But for whatever reason, they went with that. The point is instead of inheriting from peer base, we now inherit from client peer. So let's go ahead and close that out and open up our solution here. So now we can just replace this with client peer. And you know what? Check that out. Our error goes away. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a peer base find here to see if we inherit from peer base anywhere else in this solution. And I do not see us inheriting anywhere else, so we should be good to do a build. Build failed, so we're still having errors, but that's okay. Namespace. Okay, so something didn't compile. What didn't compile? Server peer base doesn't exist. Oh, that's not good. Okay, so is it server peer? All right, let's try to oh, this isn't good. Okay, so this is where we're going to have to figure this out. So the server-to-server stuff apparently is a lot different in this version of Photon, which is disappointing. But we can totally try to discover how to fix this. Now we can look at the source code. Alternatively, what I want to do is the server peer base is returned by an overloaded method on the application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my overload menu to see what other things we have. We don't have anything there. So can we just not connect to other servers anymore? So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to... So Hive, what is Hive? I don't know what Hive is. I'm going to Google this. So server peer base... Photon, oops, not Photon 5, Photon 4. So there's an upgrade guide. Oh, could have probably read that. Client peer replaces peer base. We already figured that out. S2S peer base. Okay. All right. Okay, so we need... So there's two classes. So basically, server peer base has been moved into two different classes, inbound S2S base and outbound S2S base, which apparently both inherit from S2S peer base. So, okay, so the master server is the one that accepts inbound connections. So we're changing that to inbound S2S base, which we don't have a reference to. So the reason we might not have a reference to that is that it's included in a different library. So let's hop over here and let's see if there's Sort by that. I don't know what service stack is. Would it be in the Photon? Okay, I'm going to load up my IL spy. And we're going to do some DLL spelunking. I'm going to figure out what some of these... I don't recognize some of these DLLs. So we'll figure that out. So we will look at loading balance. Is it in here? Look for S2S. Well, I guess if you guys noticed this thing I'm looking for, you probably can't tell me because you're all in the future, but I don't see S2S pure base there. Actually, that's the only DLL that I don't recognize. Just to be clear, look at exitgames lib. Okay, I'm being an idiot. Oh, S2S pure base is there, but I don't see inbound. Wait a sec, I see it right there. Okay, I guess ReSharper... Okay, ignore the last 3 minutes. I guess ReSharper decided to not have that show up in my autocomplete. Okay. So for this guy, this will be an inbound... Will it... What are you yelling at me about? Cannot change return type. What does it want? It wants an S2S pure base. So an S2S peer base on create server peer. Then for master server peer, so this is going to be, is this going to be the inbound or the outbound? The server accepting the incoming connection should use inbound S2S base. So master server peer should inherit from inbound S2S peer. And let's look at its constructor. It's a constructor that takes in an init request. So use outbound server peer. Okay, I read it the other way around. This is the outbound server peer. So the server on the... Oh, I'm in the region server. I thought I was in the master server. I am stupid. Okay, so this one wants the response, right? No, it wants an application base. Are you kidding me? So we have to pass in this application into the constructor. So for a master service peer, server peer, let's go ahead and pass in this. When we create the server peer, and let's come back here, and then let's accept it. So it's going to accept in application, app, and then we're going to pass that in straight into base. And we don't need init response anymore, so we can remove that completely, come back here and remove it from being passed in. So we now have a thing. So that's fantastic. All right, so now it's complaining because we're not implementing on connection established and on connection failed. Okay, so I guess what that means is they took our on server connection failed in our so it moved this out of there. That's what it looks like. What are you yelling at? Connect to server, use outbound server peer instead. Okay. Outbound server peer. Well, what does it want me to use? Wants outbound S2S base dot connect. Outbound S2S base, which doesn't exist, because of course, you know, if the documentation was correct, well, alright, come on. S2S peer base. Nope, that doesn't have anything. Oh, okay. I'm thinking this is how it changed. We create the peer first. So peer equals new master server peer, passing in this in our application. Then we do peer dot connect to server. See, I don't like that. I don't like that. it says, the documentation says that it's still possible to use connect to server UDP, but they recommend switching it over. We'll switch it over later. I just want this stupid thing to compile. All right, so I'm going to hit F6, and build was successful. Okay, so to recap, we had a couple changes in our base class names and stuff and things, and then of course on our master server peer, we're going to have to go and come back to that later time. But let's see if this works. So now let's do our configuration. Let's come back here into our deploy folder 64, and let's open up our Photon server.config. Oh, by the way, the new version of VS Code is really cool. I highly recommend it. But, all right, so what am I doing? I am going to open up the old Photon, the version that we were using before. I'm going to open up his configuration. Let's go ahead and split screen so I can just go ahead and plop down Photon socket server. Okay, so now we have two versions right here. So for our UDP listeners, what are we in? We're in load balancing. We don't care about load balancing. We don't care about any of this stuff. We don't care about MMO demo. Okay, what we care about are game instance 1, game instance 2, and master server and default. So I'm going to go ahead what am I doing? I want default, so that's a lot of stuff in default. So go ahead and hit default and all of this stuff. I'm just going to paste it in here. Paste it in here. I'm gonna go away. Go away, I don't want you. I'm going to go ahead and remove all these comments. We don't want the comments. So we have our default application, which has everything, right? Shut up. And then we have our UDP listeners that listen on 5055, 5056, and 5057. So that's our default. And then we have our master server, which just listens on 5055, but that just does the master server. We have our game instance 2, which does 5057, and our game instance 1. So no idea if this is going to work. It's not going to show up in our Photon control just yet because we have to make sure to open up our Photon control exe, and then or exe.config, and then I'm going to open up another one over here, and I'm going to find where we added that stuff. Where did we add that stuff? Where are you? Here we go, in instances. So in instances, we want the load balancing. I don't care. We want all three of these. I can totally count. I mean all four of those. And there we go. So we add that into our... so those are the names of the instances of things we just copy and paste. Don't worry, I didn't change any of the configuration. All I've done so far is copy and paste it over. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close Photon Control, and I'm going to open it back up, and we're going to see it probably explode, because that's just the way my luck is. Alright, so it looks like we have game instance 1, game instance 2, and master server, and default. So I'm going to go ahead and open up default. While that's loading, I'm going to go ahead and open up our logs. Where are you? You're here. We have our logs. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my log viewer. So it looks like it successfully started to run. So that's kind of unexpected. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to open up these guys. Let's see what happened here. It looks like everything started. Okay, seriously, go away. Service is running. Service is running. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our project logs, which are going to be in deploy log, and we have our server game app and our server master app. I'm going to move these over. Now, okay, so we did get an error there for some reason. I'm going to go ahead and copy my tabs over, but I can do that by copy highlight settings from game app log, and then I also want to copy my tabs, copy columns from game app log. And there we go. because these are new log files, I need to copy all this stuff over. So we have to do the same thing here. Highlight, copy over from master app log, and then copy columns from master app log. All right. So I'm not going to worry too hard about that error. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm not sure if it is going to impact anything because I don't see anything from my code actually causing this error on this stack trace. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up Unity and watch everything explode. Everything that we've done the last 30 minutes, watch it all go up in flames because that's what happens when you do major version updates to server software. It's kind of expected. So let's go here. I'm going to hit Control B. Actually, I don't care. I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm just going to make sure we can connect first. So I'm going to hit play. And we're going to wait a second here. Oh, we got a database connection. Go to admin, create a lobby. Actually, I'm going to destroy the lobby. I'm going to close out. Now I'm going to hit Control B. And I'm seeing the logs work just fine. We did connect. We joined the main lobby, so that's fantastic. Let's go ahead and see if our other stuff works. As in being able to connect to the region server as well. Because that's going to be the weird one. Because it looks like a lot changed with how that works. Okay, so I'm going to create a lobby, join the lobby, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff still works. Then I'm going to start the game. And we got an exception. Alright, we got an exception on start game. Okay, so what happened is our region server did not connect to our master server. So it might have something to do with that exception, I'm not sure. Though it says connected to master server. So why would it lie to me like that? Let's go ahead and turn it off and on again. So seriously, I'm looking at the log. It says connecting to master server, and then connected to master server, which, you know, makes you think that so I'm still getting that exception. You know what? You know what I think? I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop default. I'm going to move back over to my server config. And down here on our default, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take off Buzz MMO Game 2, so we're only starting 1. Because I'm seeing a warning from Log4net, something about creating a new logger instance with the same previous factory. So what I'm thinking is that might have something to do with some sort of, like, I don't know, app pool being shared or something? I don't know. Okay, we're still getting, unfortunately, we're still getting the same error. Logger instance created for previous factory, but then we're getting connecting to master server, then connected. And then we're getting this thread state exception already started on failsafe batch executor. So, yeah. Right now I'm looking at for differences between how we set up our stuff. Oh, wait a second, I'm looking at it between that. I'm stupid. It's the same. We don't care about policy. We don't care about TCP listeners. Display name. Maximum. Load balancing. All right. Let's think here. You know, it's already been 40 minutes, way longer than I expected to. I'm going to hold off, and in the next video, I'm going to do some research. I'm actually going to be good and read the upgrade guide. And there's definitely some weirdness with the log. See here, I don't think I've shown you guys this warning. This log manager. Logger instance already created with previous factory. So I'm not sure. That's concerning to me because it looks like there's some sort of weird thing where it's like reusing some same app domain or something, which wouldn't be what we want. And then we get this thread already started. So I really think there's something weird going on with that. It could have something to do with how we connect to the master server because that entire API has changed. So I'm going to play around with this on my own time and then I'll get back to you guys. But in the meantime, I will see you later.